Thank you very much, gentlemen. I am joined by Svenskeren and Bjergsen after a dominant 3-0 over the Unicorns of Love. So Svenskeren, I'm going to ask you first, how does it feel to win that title both for North America and for TSM?
Definitely feels great because TSM usually doesn't do too hot internationally, so it feels great to do something good for TSM, I guess. And me personally, I used to always lose against UOL in back when I played in Europe, so it feels good to get back at them as well.
Kind of a similar case over there for you, Bjergsen. You played against them at so many different IEMs, haven't really been able to come out on top quite consistently. How does it feel to finally beat them in a best-of series here on an international stage?
I mean, of course it feels really good, especially since they were the team that took the one game off of us in the best-of-ones. I don't even think I played very well this series, but overall I think my team played really well, communicated well. They carried me pretty hard. I think they were definitely a formidable opponent.
Definitely some fans proud of the team, proud of your guys' performance. Definitely understandable. Surprisingly large amount of TSM fans in Europe, guys. Gotta say,
nice.
I understand why, I get it, but surprised to see so many here. Now, looking forward, Svenskeren, for you, I feel like there's been a lot of criticism levied at you, like the Lee Sin one-trick kind of commentary, but you played so many different champions. The Lee Sin, still clutch, the Kazakhs coming in, the Elise and the Gragas as well. Do you feel like you're kind of putting some of those rumors to rest?
Yeah, so it feels kind of bad being called a one-trick rat because, I don't know, just tryharding in NA is like, yeah, I kind of need to tryhard in NA where all the opponents are pretty tough, so playing my best champion.
Well, you don't need to tryhard here.
Wait, okay, I'm sorry. Are you saying you do not need to tryhard here in EU? Are you saying that easier opponents let you play?
No, maybe a little bit. But yeah, I don't know, it feels good to get some confidence back on other champions than Lee Sin, which we were able to pull up wins here at Rift Rivals, so yeah, that's good.
MS Rift Rivals, hey, close enough. Got there in the end. Now, Bjergsen, for you, looking forward, NA being confident against EU here like this, how does this affect you guys moving forward to other international competitions like Worlds? Do you feel like it's going to be even easier to make it out of groups knowing that you can take down these European teams?
I don't necessarily think it'll be easier because I think the EU teams just kind of got caught up in a certain meta, and I think that they're going to adapt a lot for Worlds. And I know that especially G2 is still going to look strong at Worlds. And the Asian region is just still looking pretty strong. So this doesn't give me any kind of overconfidence going into international events because we're going to be facing extremely strong teams going to Worlds if we make it there. And we have to play even better than we did at this tournament to get out of groups.
Well, speaking of, let's look a little bit forward. NA LCS, you guys have taken down Europe. Now NA stands in front of you. Svenskeren, where is TSM going to finish this season once you guys return?
I mean, I don't want to sound cocky, but we're obviously aiming for #1, so...
Definitely where they want to be. That's where the fans want to see them as well. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for taking the time to talk to me. We're going to toss things over to the analyst desk to break down that series.
Thank you very much, Dracos. Wow, very interesting questions there. And I'm going to ask a couple of those to my guests here as well, as I'm joined by Andrew Vedius Day and two of the Rift Rivals champions, Biofrost and Doublelift. That means we talked to almost everybody on the team, or we're going to talk to you guys. I just heard from your teammates, obviously, must be a great victory. But Biofrost, I want to go to you first. A first big victory for you also here at Rift Rivals with TSM. What does it mean to you to make it work in the end?
Well, it's my first ever win in a tournament other than NALCS, so it doesn't mean a lot. It's an international tournament, even though it's only against Europe. So it is good for TSM and I guess NA as a region as a whole, because I don't really remember the last time North America has won any international competition, so this is good.
Well, this is great. Obviously, Doublelift, same thing for you. You have got a ton of titles under your belt already, but this one, even though it is not an MSI or World Championship, it is international competition, and you guys aced the final.
Yeah, for sure. I think, for me personally, it means a lot because I'm coming back off a split where I didn't have a lot of confidence. You know, solo queue made me a shitty player. and then the other thing was, I feel like people, they think of me and they think of that I choked at last year's Worlds and that I played badly at international competitions, where I don't really feel that way. And so I think this was like a really big statement tournament for me that I can compete with the highest level, even though it's just EU, like Biofrost said. So I feel really good, obviously.
Can we stop saying just EU?
I mean, the only competition here was EU.
I'm not trying to say EU. Yeah,
no, I understand what you mean.
Vedius,
it's just a bit of banter, of course. I am just pulling this leg. You are a respect. You had no other opponents. EU were your only opposition in this game.
That's what he meant.
You guys have a funny analyst desk, by the way.
Vedius is a bit... No, there is. I think Vedius is just a bit upset that obviously EU did not do a lot in this tournament.
Like, NA is definitely greater than EU.
Yes.
Roman is going to have to turn his arrow around on his chest now because TSM were able to break the curse and they were able to redeem their record against the Unicorns.
Definitely. And Doublelift, I just want to talk a bit more about your answer there because you have spoken to your confidence level maybe not being on par in the beginning of summer, and there was this huge spotlight on TSM with you coming back. Well, Doublelift's back. Now, obviously, everything's going to go perfect. So are you happy that, you know, you're taking the steps in the right direction, obviously, with this result? Is that helping the idea that things are going well?
Yeah, the expectations on TSM are always extremely high. And then, you know, for me, there was this extra spotlight because I was coming back. And I don't know, the game is such a team game now that I can play champions like Ashe and, like, I can look really good as long as I hit arrows, which previously, like, that was really not the case. Like, AD carry is a lot more team-centric role right now. And I'm not gonna lie, like, I got carried pretty hard a lot of games by, like, Bjergsen and everyone on the team, honestly. Our team play was just insane.
I mean, your arrows were on point. Biofrost, your performance was also on point. How does that kind of reflect on you or influence you, the fact that this guy has to be the star and also carry a lot in that team as well with the rest, and you guys have to perform? Is that heavy on your shoulders as well?
I think having the stress of being able to perform at every match is really good. It can also be a double-edged sword because if you don't manage stress well, then it can be really like a fast downhill where, you know, you lose one game and the community really hates you for it, and then you like just kind of chill and you play a lot worse for the next couple of games. But if you can manage that and be able to receive community criticism in like a healthy manner, then it can be really beneficial as well. So I think it's both good and bad.
Yeah, I think you guys should read a lot of Reddit and Twitter now after these matches because you absolutely deserve it. Vedius, we got to turn that around, obviously, for the European teams. This was an absolute wake-up call that you said, well, it's not really underperforming when your style just gets exposed, and obviously wasn't up to par. So where did they go from here? Well,
the European teams, I think, have come to realize that their strategies, their playstyles are not as effective if they want to try and succeed at international competition. And I think it's really important to identify that, like, the European teams came in exactly as expected. Like, their styles were exactly the same. The players performed at the level that we expected. And NA just really came in and were really a cut above. Like, I thought TSM was very impressive. Phoenix One were really impressive. And, like, they just completely demolished Europe. And I think that moving forward, like, Europe just need to expand their styles. And I think the biggest thing is, like, getting a better understanding of how to build your early game
I'm going to
leads.
challenge you a bit on the every player coming in and playing as we expected, because we did, and you as well, had high hopes for a Caps if he would break or make it on this stage. We had players that had done well. So I feel like some of them really underperformed as well, because it's kind of easy to say, well, they all did bad, but what exactly went bad? Was it individual? Was it in lane that they got outplayed? Was it obviously the objective game?
Well, I think one of the first issues that European teams had, specifically for UOL and Fnatic, is they were very restricted in their champion pools. They were very limited, and I think the best example of that is the TSM versus Fnatic game, where the draft was pretty much perfect from the side of TSM, right? Like, I don't know if you guys knew exactly what they were going to pick every single time, but it felt like that they had an answer to everything. And the fact that Fnatic allowed the enemy team to have a champion like Caitlyn, like, that speaks to it. But also, with Caps specifically, I think one of the reasons why I didn't put him in my OP5 was simply because of experience. This was his first international event. This was the first time that he was going up against top-tier talent in the forms of Bjergsen, Jensen, and Ryu, who are all very experienced and talented individuals. So I think that he should come away with a valuable lesson in what it's like to play against other top teams in other regions, but also, like, how you just playing your style is not always going to be good enough.
If we look at all the teams, Doublelift and Biofrost, obviously we can say EU teams failed as a whole, but if you look at all three of them, which one do you see a lot of promise or can bounce back, or can they all bounce back, and what are the next steps you guys think?
I think they're all actually pretty good. Playing against each team, I can definitely feel a certain style. I think Fnatic, their ball lane needs to play meta champs, and also with regards to Caps, I think he just didn't understand that it's a really heavy engaged meta, and you can't not run cleanse versus like heavy CC comps. You can't just basically pick bad summoners or pick bad champions. Like, if you're playing Orianna, there was one game where he was just like feeding, straight feeding, and it was like he's playing Ori versus LeBlanc and I think Gragas, and he just disrespected Jensen so many times. And as soon as you fall behind once mid lane, you're going to continuously fall behind unless your team gives you vision. So I think it was just like more of a game understanding thing than just saying like, oh, Caps was bad, or like Caps is bad, his playstyle isn't going to work. He probably just didn't know that that could happen to him. And then UOL is obviously pretty good. They're definitely better than I expected coming in. And then who's the last team?
G2.
Oh yeah, G2. I mean G2. You can always count on G2. I don't know. I think they're gonna make worlds. They're fine.
All right, Biofrost. On the topic of G2, obviously our 3-time champions here in EU, who we were looking at so much. How do you think they can improve, and what do you think went wrong for them mainly here?
G2, I think for the most part, they have like pretty sporadic performances in the sense that, you know, sometimes they show up really well, and then that was at MSI, and then other times they kind of fall short. And I think we can rely on them to bounce back because they have like really strong players and their fundamentals are really good. And if the meta is suited for them or they have a really good understanding of that patch, they can be really, really strong.
Yeah, that's kind of my remark to that too, though, because we've talked to them obviously a couple of times, and a couple of weeks ago they said we don't have a good grasp on the meta yet, but in a couple of weeks, and then definitely in preparation for a tournament like this, it doesn't seem like it's something that you should be surprised by. So I don't really understand that. Do you guys have any pointers to why that could be?
I think part of that could be just like for the players, certain champion picks might not suit their playstyle, as well as like there's a certain type of playstyle that, you know, it might be around mid or it might be around bot lane, and some teams like G2 might not be very experienced with that, and that could be the reason. But being able to play like a variety of playstyles is important, I think.
Right.
But just to add to that, I think that communication is one of the big things that I see as an issue for G2 right now, simply because back when they were like extremely formidable and really terrifying was when Trick and Perks were like this unstoppable duo of like mid jungle, where we were playing a huge amount around our mid lane superstar and we were getting a huge amount of investment into him. And when you look at a lot of the success from the North American teams, a lot of that is similar, right? Like Contracts and Jensen, the fact that Svenskeren invests time for Bjergsen, right? Like that kind of playstyle is effective because it nets you an early lead, and then all you have to do is have the experience to know how to close out the game. And I think the biggest issue for European teams right now is that here in Europe, we're too used to being too passive in the early game. We trade a few kills here and there, we have a few skirmishes, but the game really starts for us at about the 20-minute mark. Whereas I feel like the North American teams, they're so used to fighting more and they're used to being more proactive because they have to be, that they suddenly get these big early leads, and the European teams struggle to find ways back.
Double for us, it was quite interesting to see, to look across all the teams. For instance, C9, not the best or a phenomenal early game team, but then here they did better. You guys had a phenomenal early game. You snowballed so cleanly. Is that kind of, you feel like, what tipped things over the edge for this tournament, that you guys know how to do that?
I think for me and Bio, we're super good in lane, and so we just try to use our lane advantage and matchup knowledge to snowball that into like more roams or better vision around bot. And then, you know, Bjergsen is the best mid in the West, so he's obviously going to win his lane. And Hanser, I mean, he usually, he either gets cheese level 1 and dies, or he'll win his lane. So I think, yeah, we have super strong laners, and that's not has very little to do with our team's playstyle, but we do try to play like smart, I think. And part of playing smart is knowing when to play aggressive. So when we get a lead, we try to turn that 1K gold lead into a 2K, and so on.
That was crazy. In the first game, you guys had an 8,000 gold lead at 20 minutes, which is insanity because every player was stepping up. We did have to pick a Rift Rivals MVP for the finals, at least, and that was Svenskeren, our finals MVP. It was a very difficult decision. I think that was your pick, but we had Azale and Jad having a Biofrost, a double lift in there as well. Obviously, Bjergsen and Hunter are always in the mix, but I can see how it...
It's really tough, right? But just in that final series in particular, I thought Svenskeren had the largest impact in being able to facilitate a lot of the early leads.
Baron.
The way in which he, I mean, like, he did almost give away a Baron, but he did also make up for it by getting the Baron as well. So I think that overall, like, he's had a really impactful tournament. He's been really impressive. And you heard him in the interview with Dracos where he said, like, for him, this was also a great opportunity for him to prove that he's not just a one-trick, right?
That's Double giggling about.
I mean, Sven never wins 50-50 fights, so when he got the Baron steal, I was just like, am I like awake right now? Like, somebody wake me up, please.
Oh, a bit trash talk even to the own teammate. In like the system that is TSM, we know that Sven had a bit of on-off performances the last couple of months. Is it important that he is absolutely on par to make everything kind of tick in the right way?
Yeah, I mean, jungle is definitely the spear of the team. You know, wherever the jungle goes, the team plays aggressively. And Dennis, I think he just needs like a lot of information from his lanes, just like every jungler does. And I don't know, we work really hard together to play as a unit because we're not all gonna have good games, and sometimes our jungler or one of our laners is gonna fall behind. So we just try our best to, you know, just make sure we always play as a unit. Yeah,
you guys seemed all on the same page. Bifrost also some great engages and disengages when UOL tried to engage. Did you feel like you had a big part in snowballing all these leads for TSM in this tournament?
Not really.
You're
He
a
says yeah,
really
yeah.
good Braum, dude. Like,
Okay, thank you. I just think Braum is a really good champion to disengage. His kit just makes him really useful for that. So if I'm doing that, then that means I'm doing my job. I don't think of it as, I'm outperforming or anything. It's just I'm doing what the champion's required to do.
Double if
Bio Daddy's just being humble, dude. This guy carries me so hard sometimes.
No.
We'll settle on that. I think all had a really good series. So the big question is what's next? Because we talked about EU. Obviously, wake-up call in some sense, a good thing that they all had the wake-up call now. But Worlds is just around the corner. So if you turn this around for the NA side of things, the question is, you got to keep this going now because now the expectation is there and you know that you can win all these games. So how do you make sure that you don't fall off in the time between now and Worlds and finally get those results, Peter?
Well, when you play an international tournament, there's a lot of rubber banding. So when EU probably is going to play in the next few weeks, they're going to try to incorporate some new things that they learned from this that without this tournament they wouldn't have been able to learn. And so I think they're going to catch up pretty quickly. It's not like EU is a bad region. And for NA, I think, especially for us, when we go to the next international tournament, we just want to make sure that we still put it in that same level of, I guess, effort and determination to be the best. And hopefully we can, even up our level one more time for Worlds.
I'm curious as to whether or not, do you feel that you as a team, especially given your dominance, would you take a huge amount away from this tournament? Do you think you've learned some things? Like, I know you played against some interesting champions like Warwick and the Hecarim. I'm not saying you're going to integrate them, but do you feel you've learned something you can bring to your own playstyle from this?
Me personally, yeah, for sure. Every tournament I play at, I think I take away a lot. And just the level of stress. If NALCS is like a 2 out of 10, this is like a 7 or an 8. And Worlds is obviously a 10. So I think this is great practice for us. And it's a great experience that other NA teams aren't going to be able to have.
Yeah, Bifrost, anything you took away specifically?
I think playing against other bot lanes is really important because you get exposed to a lot of different play styles. With Fnatic, they liked ganking bot a lot, and I think also the other bot lanes also had a really big focus around bot lane, and they're really good at executing ganks with their junglers. So we always had to be careful about when could they gank and where should we ward so that we know when the gank is coming. So I learned all of those things.
Besides of the victory, taking a lot back to NA with you guys, because I'm pretty curious to see what's going to happen now in NA. CLG is still a top-ranked team. IMT has had some really good showings. C9's been good. Phoenix 1 is all of a sudden top there. So how do you think that's going to evolve in her back? Are we going to see Phoenix 1, for instance, in the playoffs? What do you think of a contender of them now, Biofrost?
I think overall the NA teams look a lot better. I think after this tournament, people are going to be like, okay, NA, we're actually a good region. We're not as bad as everyone thinks. And with all the teams like P1, IMT, CLG, C9, everyone looks really strong and they all have their different play styles. So it's going to require every team to work so much harder to be able to do well in playoffs and contest for the championship.
Double
I think it's CLG, C9, TSM, top 3. Easy.
Right.
Not in that order.
Not in that order, necessarily. Yeah, Svenskeren was saying, well, it's going to be TSM, but...
obviously.
Well, we saw a bunch of interesting competition, a bunch of big plays, and with the dust settled after 4 days of games, it is time to take a look at those big plays. Brought to you by Acer. First up, TSM's mid laner, he pulled his weight this week, and at Sir Potato, he tweeted, Bjergsen is pretty decent at League of Legends.
Knock down the turret. Well, Bjergsen is covering here on the top side. How about they going to look for him right now, see if they can take him down. He's rooted and stopped up. Featherstorm, he pushes him back. An auto attack was all he needed, but Bjergsen turns it around.
Also fitting that it was TSM versus UOL, but that was a really nice one. And you wanted to highlight some other plays from Shinra, I believe,
yeah, because also the super tense moment between G2 and TSM where it was like 40, 50-minute game, and then he gets that clutch flash ultimate onto Perks, which effectively wins in the game too. Like, he had a lot of good plays this game. He is indeed a pretty good mid laner.
Nice you mentioned G2 also we had other teams in the tournament, although they didn't really get a lot of wins in the end, but they did get some big plays, and Fnatic's top laner is known for his great escapes and showed some magic as Jarvan versus Phoenix 1 at Benkos 1302 asked the perfect question, is it really Soaz without a clutch escape?
Low amount of damage, and the fact that they had the pressure in the bottom lane with which to make that gank happen.
Well, it feels like it's happening.
Oh,
Soaz a little bit late on the flash. The barrel comes out. Look at the escape. Soaz, you beauty.
Yeah, even if Fnatic doesn't perform that well, Soaz is always doing these crazy things. He's been around for a really long time as well, so it's kind of impressive. Maybe as long as Doublelift almost.
Yeah, I think similar. Wait, yeah, he was playing Season 1, right?
Yeah, he was.
Same as me.
Yeah.
Is it really sus if he doesn't rage quit a game?
Oh, moving on to the next one. The Unicorns of Love's Visit Chachi found success with his signature prehistoric Yordle, turning around a huge fight versus Cloud9. Let's take a look.
Now they just run it down mid. Now they're looking to keep the action going. Vizichachi in trouble, could get picked off. Does go Mega, does try to turn this one back, uses the Gargoyle Stoneblade, buys a bit of time. That's the ult! Baited! Outsmarted! Unicorns of Love!
That was close.
I love how chilly is after that. Well, Chachi, obviously, he still had a good tournament, despite Unicorns of Love not doing much in the finals. I feel like you guys also really felt it and tried to shut him down a bit. What did you make of his performance during the finals?
He's pretty nuts. I mean, I think even Hotster was telling me that he thinks Vizichachi is the best EU top laner at this tournament by far. And yeah, I mean, that guy is super good. His Gnar is insane.
His Gnar is insane. Vedi, in the end, the Unicorns of Love, what can they take away? They have these big plays. They have growth that they can show through the group stage. Just an unfortunate final for them.
I just think that they need to adapt their draft pretty significantly. Like, the big thing for me is, like, Xerxes has been very well known for picking those scaling junglers, and I want to see him, like, try and invest stuff into Exile. Let's see what happens if you can snowball this mid lane, who I do think has talent. It's just very much right now that it's a lot more focused on, like, the top lane and the bot side of the map.
That it is. Not a lot of days, though, for our teams to recoup. For you guys, neither. It's back to NA and back to the NA and EU LCS, because we return next week already when we start with the second half of the summer split or continue. Be sure to follow us there as the teams continue their march down the road to Worlds. I can almost not read it. We have Rocka versus H2K, NIP versus Vitality, and CLG versus FlyQuest, and IMT versus Fox. So you guys at least get a little time to get back into the habit. Do you think it's going to affect you a lot, the fact that you have to fly back now and just keep going, actually? Show that you're the best.
Yeah, traveling's not super fun. I just hope we don't lose randomly, like go 0-2. That would be like a really anticlimactic end to this win. But
it would be forgiven to you guys.
Yeah, exactly. We got an excuse now.
And Phoenix once said that on the flight here is where they felt like they really leveled up. So maybe ask them, you know, what happened exactly and how you guys can just use the time to...
Maybe they were just watching like the same movie on the plane or something.
Yeah, maybe they're completely in sync. Well, thank you guys very much for joining us. Congratulations. Fantastic victory for TSM. Thank you, Vedi, as well, for joining me as always. And thank you guys for watching. That will do it from us here at Rift Rivals 2017. We will be back for more LCS action next week. Have a great night.